Hayley, one of the newest members of the Axon team, so welcome here today.
Thank you.
I suppose one of the things we want to deep dive into today is firstly find out a bit more about you, but then I sort of want to branch across into talking about how people go about getting all their claims through and working with the team from DVA and just sort of seeing how that progress actually works. So I suppose let's start from the beginning. Let's go back to you, what your background was in the military and sort of move forward chronological.
Yeah, so I joined the Army. I did 10 years in the Army. 6 of that was Transport Corps as a driver, and then I also did 4 years in Postal. And basically once I hit my 10 years, I knew it was time to get out and learn some new skills and branch out. So I got a job with RSL Victoria, and I then trained up to be a level 2 advocate. So yeah.
That's pretty much. What is, obviously you just brought up then, what is a level 2 advocate? Like, obviously there's different tiers of advocate based on that info, but what's a level 2 advocate mean?
Yep, so we have to go through some rigorous training. So basically you have to go through level 1, which once you're level 1, you still have to be supervised by a qualified advocate. Once you hit level 2, it means you're basically free to then lodge claims, compensation claims on behalf of clients with DVA. So it takes about 12 months to become qualified through the advocacy training and development program. Yeah, the training's monitored and you have to hit certain points in your training, which is both on-the-job training as well as, it's called Compass, so it's very, very similar to your campus courses.
Yep.
And then you have to go and do a 3-day face-to-face testing to make sure that you are up to the scratch of an advocate.
Right, so there's a fair amount of lead-up training before you can actually go forward and help people.
Yep.
What about after level 2? Like, is there subsequent levels beyond that as well?
Yeah, so level 3 then dive into more of the appeals process. So it's more training again. That training can also take 6 to 12 months. And it's basically then you're able to front the Veterans Review Board on behalf of your client or veteran, and do an appeal. So for an example, appeal would be if someone's lodged a claim and that claim has been rejected, they would lodge an appeal with the Veterans Review Board, and an advocate can then take that appeal on behalf of the client.
If someone goes through the appeal process, do they get allocated a level 3 advocate, or do they have to go and find their own?
So normally we like to, we would hope that everyone who has started the claim process through liability would have done so with an advocate. And then just say with myself, one of my clients had a claim rejected, then as part of most teams in advocacy, so most your ESOs, so let's just, for example, your RSL, in our team we had 3 qualified level 3, so it would then do a handover with the level 3 advocate to then take on that appeal.
Oh, so you don't go in cold with the level 3 if you have to do the redress.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a handy thing. I suppose there's probably a lot of people out there that are going like, hey, I'm either getting out now and I've got a couple of injuries, or you've got the other option, which is you're getting medically discharged out of the military. Is there a significant difference in the process you'd follow if you're medically discharging versus getting out onto your own steam and then making claims?
So to begin with, I think everyone should be going through the same process, as in everyone should engage an advocate as soon as they're injured.
Right, so at point of injury.
Then
you get
engage an advocate.
On your side. Why is that?
So it's better off to lodge claims as they happen, so that, let's just say you do 20 years in the military, you don't then have to try and backtrack 20 years worth of injuries to then claim. So if you're still serving, I would definitely, as soon as you are injured, or even mental health, anything service related,
yep,
I would then and there engage an advocate, the advocate that can then run you through the process of lodging a claim. And that way, let's just say 10 years time you discharge, you've already had all of your injuries accepted. On discharge, you can then go to the next step, which is compensation.
Right. How come there's, what's the benefits of an advocate? Because oftentimes people are sitting there going, hey, I could probably square this stuff away myself, and then they sort of go their own path. Why would you even bother going to an advocate?
So most advocates, or almost all advocates, there's one, a couple that aren't, but most advocates are ex-serving members themselves. So you can relate to your advocate. Like I said before, an advocate goes through minimum 12 months training just to get level 1, and then they have to go through more training to be unsupervised. So they know the ins and outs of everything to do with DVA. They can also think holistically, so they're not just thinking about the initial claim process for liability, they're also thinking ahead, they're thinking compensation, they're thinking, also the medical discharge process, and yeah, they can basically make a plan from today almost through your whole life, and they have that knowledge to be able to point you in the right direction. And also an advocate will liaise with DVA on your behalf. It takes the stress out of claiming, it takes the stress out of trying to learn the lingo of DVA and all the different acts that you might come under. Some members have done 20, 30 years of service. They might come under 2 or 3 different acts, so it can get very tricky.
I love how passionately you speak about this, and I don't know if you've realised this, but a few times you've said the way that we do and the way that we do. Is that something that you never really let go of, being a bit of an advocate at some point?
Yeah, definitely. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I come from a background of army siblings and grandfather and whatnot. So yeah, I love helping people. I loved being an advocate. Yeah, it's something I'm very passionate about. Even in the office, I find like on a day-to-day basis, I'm throwing my 2 cents around with DVA, or even just someone might have a question about DVA. I might even hear clients asking some questions about DVA, and I'll just point them in the right direction. So obviously I'm not going to give specific advice, not being an advocate anymore, but just making sure that they have got everything in line, they have engaged an advocate, things like medical documents, they have their medical documents from their service, they're going through it, really setting everyone up.
So we obviously said at point of injury, you then go and get yourself an advocate. What are the next sort of macro steps that you take right through until you actually submit a claim, I suppose?
So once you have an advocate, the advocate will set you up with a DVA profile. So it's normally providing DVA with proof of identity. Once you're in the system with DVA, normally you will go through, your advocate or yourself will go through your medical docs. And what we used to like to do is basically create folders for every injury that you sustain. So, one for your back, one for your hip, one for your shoulder. Go through and just make individual folders of injuries. That way you've got specific dates when you've injured yourself, any diagnosis that will come handy when you're lodging a claim. And engaging with a GP. So if you've already left the military, as soon as you leave, it's really good to engage wherever you've moved to, really good to engage with a new GP, and that way you can build a relationship with that GP. And so when it comes time to lodge a claim, you have that GP on your side. Not all GPs will take on DVA because DVA paperwork can be quite enormous. So some GPs won't take it on. So it's very important that you have the conversation with the GP to make sure they're willing and able to take on DVA claims.
Yeah, awesome. So once then you've got your GP on your side and you submit the claim, like how long's the process take, and sort of what are those people that have claimed at the moment, what are they experiencing?
So at the moment, DVA is severely backlogged in their claims. With the introduction of MyGov, a lot of people have been just lodging a lot of their own claims and lodging probably more than they should. So there's about a 12-month wait with DVA at the moment. That's why it's probably really important to lodge claims as they happen so that you've got everything sorted.
Yeah, so it's like 12 months before they actually make an assessment on you as to whether you're reasonable. And then beyond that, obviously, is the time for them to actually assign a monetary value to them.
So if your injury has been approved by DVA, so liability has been accepted, the next stage is obviously compensation. So that next stage might take 3 to 6 months also. So if you're still serving, if you think you're going to be leaving just service within the next 12 months, I'd definitely pull the trigger now. Get liability accepted. and then once you leave the military, you can then pull the trigger on compensation. But advocate, you need an advocate.
Yeah. So if you're even thinking about getting out, firstly, already go and get an advocate. Start lodging your claims. If you're thinking about getting out in the next 12 months to 24 months, start getting your admin together, because when you've gotten out, it seems like it's a lot harder to actually go back and get the detail you need once you're out.
Yeah, and if you're still serving, you've still got access to, the base GPs. You can get sent off for specialists, diagnoses. You can get sent off for x-rays and imaging and stuff, and at defence's expense. So you're better off pulling the trigger whilst you're still in, using, your defense entitlements with your medical system. And also, peace of mind. So when you leave, you know that even just forget monetary compensation, it's even just to have your injuries recognised, so that when you leave, DVA will fund medical treatment for your injuries.
Awesome. Thanks, mate.
Thanks.